Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you a review of the new Early Bird palette by Pretty Vulgar. So you guys are interested in hearing about this palette and also seeing some swatches, then just keep on watching. So Pretty Vulgar is a new makeup line that is available at Sephora. It's available online and I actually found it in stores. I was planning on picking up some products from the line. I kind of forgot about it for a little while. I saw some reviews, but then I went to Sephora and I actually saw a whole display there. So it is available in stores. And they do have 3 eyeshadow palettes. This is the Early Bird palette. They have one that's really colorful, one that's more smoky, but this is more of a neutral palette and I just wanted to get something that was safe. I wanted to try something out from this brand and it is a little bit pricier. A lot of like their blushes, lipsticks, everything was like $20, $25, $30. And this palette is available for $35. So I thought if I was gonna get something from the brand, I wanted something that I could use a lot and not just like one lipstick or something. So it's a $35 palette, so it's not super pricey for a high-end palette. You do get 12 shades, you get 6 mattes and 6 shimmer shades. And it's just really neutral. I wanted something that was kind of more safe, something I could use for every day, which is what I mean by safe. Not something super colorful. I just wanted to see the quality of this brand. And I actually really like the layout of this palette. You get some really pretty shades for just like a neutral bronze eye, something a little bit more smoky like what I have on today. And then also some purple shadows. So you get like a whole eye look with this side and a whole eye look with this side. I did a purple eye look with this palette that's on my Instagram. I'll link it below for you guys. And the eye look that I did today will be on Instagram as well. So once that is up, I'll have it in the description bar as well for you guys. But everything's really neutral, but you do get everything you need for a smoky eye, a neutral eye, a golden eye look, a bronze eye look. So all the colors are there, which I really like. There's just enough matte shades, just enough shimmers. The biggest issue is the formula, which is kind of the most important part. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch the shades and let you guys know my thoughts about each shade. And everything's just named after birds, basically. So first we have this pink matte shade. These aren't going to show up very well at all. And this is called Tweet. So that is a next to nothing color. It's basically like a translucent powder. It's just what I've been using for like my brow bone or to actually just set my whole eye look. Then we have Wink, which is like a satin color. It's like the one satin shade. It's not shimmer, it's not matte, and that is basically next to nothing too. That's on my brow bone today. So that's basically just for brow bone. It's not going to show up on the lid or anything. And then next we have the shade Chirp, which is like this peachy shade. I actually used this as a highlighter the other day, but you guys will see that is another very much not showing up color. It's very, very subtle. So those 3 shadows, like, there wasn't really much of a point with these shadows at all. You basically have like a brow bone shade and a really subtle highlighter, which is what I use them for. So I was still able to use them, but I mean, you're not living for those shadows for sure. So I'm gonna move on to the second row, which is a little bit better. So we have some more pigmented shades in this second row. I'm gonna start off with going left to right. This one is Rye. So this isn't going to show up very well, but it's actually one of my favorite shades in the palette. When I actually apply it on my eyes, it does work really nicely. So it's a very subtle light brown color. It's a really great transition shade. It doesn't look like much, but that's what you need for a transition shadow, like your first transition shade. That's the kind of ideal shade, something that's just subtle, that's going to work with a lot of different eye looks. So it's not exciting, but it's kind of necessary. And then next we have the shade Shine. And this one's a little harder to work with. The shimmers in here are fairly powdery, but this is actually a really nice shade for a lid color. I did use this on my lid one of the days that I was wearing this. So it is more subtle, but you can definitely build it up very easily, and you can use some Fix Plus and it's gonna show up nicely. So I did wear this on my lid. It ended up staying all day. It didn't have any fallout once applied. And the next shade is called Ruffled, which is like this purpley, like periwinkle shade that's super pretty. I used this on my eye look too one of the days that I was wearing this. And this one's a little bit more pigmented, a little bit foiled. It's probably the most pigmented shade I've swatched so far. And then we have this purple mauve shade that is matte. That's like the transition shade for any purple eye look. And this one's a little bit more pigmented, but it's still super, super light. But it's basically what you see in the pan. It's not, it swatches true to color. It doesn't swatch like super light compared to what you see. So that's actually a pretty good matte shade, especially for a transition shade. So I didn't have too much of an issue with any of these, but you guys can see they're very subtle. So you're going to get a lot of natural looks out of this palette. You're not going to get anything super dramatic, which might be a hit or miss depending on what your like eyeshadow preferences are. So then the last 5 shadows are all like more darker shades, more bold colors. So next we have Nest Egg, which is one of my favorite mattes. It's so pigmented. I have it in my crease today. It's like, it's just a really pretty color. I can't really describe it. There's a color in the Chocolate Bar palette. That's what a lot of the shades remind me of. That is just like this. It's like a very neutral brown, and I feel like so many of my palettes just have warm browns. So I really like this shade. And then we have this purple color that I was wearing in my purple eyeshadow look as well. This is more of a pigmented, darker purple shade, but it's also not something that's too crazy either. So the purple shadows are a lot more wearable. And I feel like when I wear purple eyeshadow, like I am committed to a purple eyeshadow look. So when I did the purple eyeshadow look with this palette, it was more subtle and it kind of threw me off a bit. But then as I saw myself wearing it in my videos, I was like, okay, I can do this again. I could do like a natural purple eye look, but it just took me a little bit to get used to because it is pigmented, but it's subtle, like I said. So it kind of depends on your preference. So all of these bottom shades just remind me of the original Chocolate Bar palette. We have this shade Victory, which is more of a warm color compared to this shade Nest Egg. And this is a very creamy, buttery, pigmented shade. You guys can see it's very pigmented, very creamy. So the mattes in here, especially the darker mattes, are awesome. Absolutely no problem with them. It's some of the shimmers that just don't cut it, but are still workable. They're not the worst in the world either. Then the shade Conquer, that's what I have on my lid today. And out of all the shimmers, I would say that is the most pigmented. So you guys can see no issue with that one. All of the bottom shades are a lot better. Basically, as I've been swatching them, they just get better and better. And then the last shade is like this cranberry brown shade. It's called Unveil, which is like the same consistency as the other dark brown shades. So that is super pigmented. So you guys can definitely see the bolder shades are the most pigmented. I'm just gonna swatch the lighter shades again for you guys so you can see like the comparison of them. So I just swatched all of the shades on my arm so you guys can get a good look of what they all look like together. And it just looks like the dark shades are so much more pigmented, but there's so many light shades, and then you get your matte, like really deeper colors. So it's a very good staple neutral palette, but there's not anything like super exciting about it. I feel like it just reminds me so much of like a Naked palette, a Chocolate Bar palette. And I'm actually going to just show you guys real quick compared to the original Chocolate Bar palette, because if you have that, it's basically a lot of similar shades, like this cranberry, basically this whole bottom row. That's what this palette reminds me of so much, just the original Chocolate Bar palette. And I don't think it's worth trying if you guys have like a good staple neutral palette, because the formula isn't like the greatest thing in the world either. What I would recommend if you guys do like the colors, it's very similar to the Carly Bible Deluxe Edition. I do have a review swatch video and one tutorial, at least one tutorial on my channel on this palette. It has a lot of the same shades, like these purple shimmery shades, and also a lot of like just the metallic shades. I feel like they're very similar. This one might have a few more matte shades or a bigger variety of mattes, but for the shimmers, like these perform a lot better compared to some of the shades in the Pretty Vulgar palette. So my overall thought with the Early Bird palette is basically it's been done a lot, which is fine. I love neutral palettes, but because the formula isn't spectacular, it's definitely not a necessary palette. But if you're just getting into palettes and you want something that's really neutral, it works great. I'm really mixed on it because I know I have a million palettes like this in my collection, but every day that I've worn this palette, I've really liked my eye look. It's always very neutral, but it's just like a very foolproof eye look with just like all the shades that are in here. I don't have to think about my eye look too much. It's basically laid out for me very well with the purples on the one side and the darker shades and the lighter shades. Just the way it's arranged, everything just kind of makes sense to me. So if you want like an everyday palette, you want natural looks, this is actually a really good palette. But if you're a makeup junkie and you love neutral palettes, you have a ton already, you'll probably be disappointed in this one. It's very mediocre, I would say. The formula isn't the best thing in the world compared to some other high-end palettes. Like the Carly Bible palette, I think is $21. You get more shades and these are more pigmented. So that's my take on this palette in particular. I know they have a more smoky eye palette and they also have a really colorful one that kind of reminds me of the Urban Decay Electric palette. So those are probably more exciting than the shades in here. Like I said, the formula is just fine, but it's not really impressive to me. I'm still debating whether or not I want to keep this palette. I have worn it for several days and I've liked the looks that I've created with it, but I don't get excited about it. So for that reason, I don't know if I'm going to keep it. So I'll see. You guys can let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. So I definitely have very mixed feelings about the palette, but definitely let me know if you guys have tried out anything from Pretty Vulgar. If you think there's anything that I would like better, something that's more impressive, definitely let me know in the comments below. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.